Excellent. So, Annette Firth, welcome to the Disenfranchised. How are you doing today?
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
Excellent. I'm glad to have you join us, and glad to learn about Phonics Bear. And I can see already you're in the branding colours there in the bright yellow. It really stood out as I was looking through your content. So is that your favourite colour, or is this kind of yeah? How did you get to that colour?
Yeah, I think it is really. I love just bright colours and standing out, and the children really love those sort of sunshine colours that we've got in our branding. And I've just run straight back from a class actually. We've been so busy. That yeah, we've been in colours all morning. I'm wearing it all the time at the moment. It's brilliant.
Well, it suits the weather today. It's so sunny outside. It's yeah, making me want to jump in a swimming pool and go on holiday. I think everyone's feeling that at the moment right now, though.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love the sunshine.
Excellent. Well, look, I think we should dive into it and find out what your first job is then. What your first job was, sorry.
So, well, I started obviously doing lots of work when I was younger and paper rounds and all bits and bobs. But my first real job, my first one that I went to 9 to 5 every day, I was a legal secretary. First of all, I'd started, I guess it's kind of strange to say, but I'd not started with the goal of being a teacher. When I left school, I wanted to be a solicitor. I always knew I wanted to help people. I thought that was the route that I would go down, and I trained, I'd gone to college, and I'd started university. And I'd got to a point where I just thought, actually, I got a bit scared actually about the financial commitment and the time commitment I was putting into my studies. And I thought, I've not had the on the ground experience of this career that I'm committing all my time and resources to. And so my parents were completely upset about it, but I decided to leave university halfway through and go and get a job in the legal profession, just to really, as a market research for myself, really, just to really confirm this was the career for me, always with that in mind, that I'd reapply after a year on the job and I'd go back and I'd continue my studies. So yeah, that was my first full-time role.
So what were your kind of day-to-day responsibilities?
Well, it started pretty much, I started at the bottom, so really just typing letters every day, answering the phones, working with the customers. I worked in family law, so there was a lot. It's quite an emotive job, so we'll have people calling all the time about things such as if they're going through a divorce, or if they've experienced domestic violence, or if they're trying to arrange contact arrangements with their children. So it was a really great job to get to know people, and it really did sort of tick that box of helping people right from the word go, because you was thrown into this atmosphere where you're speaking to people every day about these things that are really important in people's lives. And from there, I think that they saw in me obviously a commitment that I didn't want to be a legal secretary forever. I was doing this to progress and become a solicitor. So they did give me a lot more responsibilities than they would have done normally. So I ended up going down to court very quickly with solicitors and getting to see how the whole process works. And it was brilliant. It was really eye-opening. I was really grateful for that time, that people spent the time to really help me get a good feel for what that role was all about.
Wow, yeah, and it's really interesting what you said before, that you're committing to a university education and a certain amount of debt, really, aren't you? Without really knowing if you're actually going to enjoy that world or not. I hadn't thought of it like that before, and I guess you've done a lot, like a try before you buy kind of thing with that career, didn't you? Which is quite cool. Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it, to be honest. It was difficult because my family thought I had lost my mind, and they were saying, why have you taken it this way? But I think as before I'd gone to university, I'd done a little bit of summer work, and I'd worked in basically a call centre, and the majority of the people there had a degree and were not working in the field that they trained to do. So they were fantastic people that had so much knowledge on all these different topics, and they weren't using it because they weren't sure what they wanted to do, and they changed their mind afterwards. And I thought, I don't want that in my career. I want to be certain.
Okay, that's quite that's quite an astute way of looking at things, really, because a lot of people at that age just, yeah, just that's what I'm supposed to be doing, and that's what people are telling me I should be doing. So it's quite brave, really, of you to say, actually, I'm going to step out of the education system and go straight into that. So did you go back into your university course?
Well, as luck would have it, I think sometimes you have an idea, and then it's happened a few times in my life that things pull you back in different directions. So I did reapply, and I got back. I was offered the place again, but just as I was due to, I had to make the decision about accepting it. The firm that I worked with offered me the chance to study the same qualification in night school, and they would sponsor me and pay for me to do it. And they would promote me to be a legal executive, so to run my own caseload. So that for me was perfect. It took that financial pressure away, and law is such a competitive industry. To think I had a job there, I'd be actually learning on the job. It just was a perfect match. So I took that, even though I'd reapplied. Everybody again was thinking, oh my goodness, what are you doing? But I accepted the job, and I did it that way, going to college twice a week. And it was hard, it was long hours, but it was very rewarding as well.
Okay, so did you become qualified? I'm guessing at the end of it, and how long did you stay within that career for?
Yeah, so I did. I qualified. So the qualification, because it was part-time alongside work, it took slightly longer. So it was 4 years on top of what I'd already done. And I did qualify, and I loved it. I did the role. I was going down and representing clients in court, and it was just a wonderful experience, to be honest. It did tick that kind of, I'm helping people every day, and yeah, I stuck with it. Actually for about 5 or 6 years after I'd sort of made completely qualified.
So you're not in the legal world anymore. So what happened?
No, it all changed again. This is what I mean. I think life throws you a bit of a curveball sometimes. And I've worked with customers or clients who were entitled to legal aid, and that's where I had my niche. So we were helping people who were really in quite desperate situations, who probably were in a bad relationship and they couldn't afford legal representation. That's where legal aid stepped in, to help those people to get some sort of protection in law and to advise them on really, quite serious matters in their life. But what happened was the government changed and they completely scrapped legal aid for family law cases. So overnight, my caseload, we couldn't represent them anymore unless they could afford it. But it meant that we had a very different caseload of customers there that had very different needs. And I just felt it wasn't right. I didn't feel like I was helping people to the same extent as before. And it didn't feel like I was having the impact that I wanted. So I started to then have some reservations and think, is this what I want to continue doing?
Yeah, okay. So that making an impact is what I consider to be one of the main drivers why people change careers or do something different in their lives, because they want to make that a difference. For you personally, does that come from somewhere in your past or in your career, that desire to make an impact, or is it just something that's always been within you from a young age, maybe?
It's always been there, to be honest. I think it's just part of who you are. You want to help people and make a difference. I guess when I was younger, my parents, my mum had an accident when I was 5, so she's been disabled since then. And so for me, it was very much ever since being a child, really. It was about, helping at home and being, a strong member in my family, and just really getting to really look after people, really. I think it was always a key part of our family life, really.
Yeah, that's cool. And that then led you on to, well, I guess partly to go on to volunteering in Malawi. Could you tell us a bit more about that? I struggled to say that then, didn't I?
It's not an easy one to say. It's a tongue twister. So yeah, I think I was at this point where I just didn't know what I wanted to do next. And what had happened is, again, two huge things. My firm announced that it was going to be making redundancies because we didn't have the funding contracts that we had previously. And I'd had my name on a list to volunteer in a foreign country for the Salvation Army for a long time. And the two just met together. They pretty much emailed me and said, we've had somebody drop out of this adventure to Malawi. We're going for 2 months. We're going in 2 weeks. Do you want it? And I think, just from thinking, very out of character for me, I just emailed them back and said, yeah, I'm going to do it. It's just perfect time for me.
Wow. I mean, and did you specifically choose Malawi as the location you wanted to go to, or was it kind of, it didn't matter to you? You just wanted to be able to help somebody or go on this new adventure?
Yeah, when I originally put my name down, you can't really choose. You just say I would like to go, but you have the list of obviously destinations that they work quite strongly in. So it could have been anywhere. It could have been America. It could have been over in Africa. But I wanted to go really because I've always had sort of a passion for traveling. I wanted to see a completely different culture and experience it for myself. So yeah, I didn't really mind. But I was thrilled when they said it was Malawi. I really, that was definitely on the list of places I wanted to visit.
Awesome. And what were you doing there? So I think it was English and sports, is that right?
Yeah,
Teaching.
brilliant. Yeah, exactly. So we worked in an anti-trafficking centre over there with children, yeah, doing sports and English, like you just said. And it was fantastic, completely different from anything I'd ever done before.
Brilliant. And what was the cultural differences like from the UK and to Malawi? What stands out as something that was different for you in being over there?
Do you know, I think you have in your mind what you think something is going to be like, and it was completely different. So I thought, obviously, growing up in a Western culture, that the people out there would think, well, I've not got very much, I don't have very many physical possessions, and I live in a small house, and that they'd be really unhappy, or that there'd be a real struggle. It was exactly the opposite of that. Everybody was so happy. They were so kind and giving and generous. Even, if you went to a new village and they didn't have a lot of resources, but they'd make sure that they provided you with a meal. And it was just so, the people were so hospitable and kind. It made me really think about, the things that I thought was important before I went, such as, striving to have a great job so you could buy a great car, or they were happy with virtually nothing. And happiness was something that just, it came from somewhere else. It didn't come from owning lots of stuff.
It's really interesting, isn't it? People are always striving for more money, to buy more things, to sort of create this happiness for themselves. And actually that it seems like the people are kinder and happier when they don't have so much, or in your experience anyway, with that. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's a completely different. Obviously there were struggles out there and different things that people were dealing with, but the way that people pulled together as a community and they help one another up, and yeah, it was eye-opening for me, and something, it was life-changing. It completely changed my perspective in lots of ways.
maybe there's something in the way that struggle helps people come together, because I think in the COVID era, we've seen that with a lot of people, or a lot of businesses, especially within franchising, pulling together to help each other out, to share stories and ideas. And yeah, maybe there's something in that it's when there's struggles, people come together more. So yeah, it's quite interesting to hear you say that. So how long were you over there? How long were you volunteering for?
So I was out there for two months, and then yeah, you have, when you come back, there's like a debriefing in London, so you have to stay in London for a little while, which was fantastic. It was brilliant.
Yeah, okay. And what followed for you in your career then? Was it then you started to think about building Phonics Bear, or kind of what happened?
Well, from there, I came back and I thought, I really want to work with children. I'd worked in that environment where we'd work with children from lots of different age ranges, and we'd just that sort of buzz of really thinking, oh, I've made a difference here, and these children, you know, they're really happy, just feeding off their energy and building their confidence in something new that they'd never tried before. It was just really something I thought, this is, you know, this is how I want to feel. This is something good to do. So from there I came back, and I still had financial responsibility, so I worked in legal a little while just while I was applying crazily to schools to try and get into a role there.
Okay. So what happened kind of next? So okay, you've gone back into legal, did some of that, you're wanting to work with children again, and did you find a role within the schools, or yeah, what happened?
I did. I was really lucky, because I think the main thing is when you change career, I think the problem is once you've climbed a ladder to a certain level, it's daunting to change career because you're kind of going back to that bottom rung of the ladder again. And in terms of, you know, financially, you're not going to be paid the same amount. You're going to be the new person again. You've got to learn a completely new career structure and a completely new way of doing things. So it was a little bit daunting, but I'd applied to lots of different places, and it was a bit of a barrier at first because I was offered roles, but they were nowhere near enough to pay the bills that I'd already got, and so it was a bit of a struggle. But again, I was really lucky. I'd managed to find this role, which was a brand new role that was created in a school, which was paid for by all the primaries in the region, and it was to help children boost their attainment in English and in maths. And I applied for it, and they saw something in me and gave me the role, and that's where I spent the next few years just building that role, learning all about. Just at that time, phonics had been introduced in schools as the main method of teaching children to read and write, which was a huge change from the previous method, which relied a lot on children having a really good short-term memory and remembering whole words, probably how we learned to read and write. They changed it and introduced phonics, and just my job was to help the children who were really struggling to grasp reading and writing. And it was fantastic because, again, even culturally, it's a very different challenge. But I could see in these children that lack of confidence also played a role in their attainment. So it was building a selection of games and things that we could do that would be fun. They wouldn't realise they were learning, but would also work on building their confidence and their self-esteem, because once we kind of cracked that, the rest, the attainment went up naturally. They achieved great things.
And so I only discovered phonics like 6 years ago or 4 years ago, something like that. My daughter's 6, but yeah, whenever she started to learn letters, I didn't have a clue what it was. So perhaps for the audience that are listening that are in the same position I was a few years ago, what is phonics? What's it all about?
So yeah, absolutely. I didn't learn this way either. So phonics is all about learning the sounds that letters make rather than the letter names. So for example, we would learn the letter A is an A, because generally when we're talking, that's the sound that it will make. There's some common exceptions, but generally we look at what the letter sounds like. And the reason that they do that is because it's really simple then to see how we can put sounds together to make words if we're blending them together, but also how we can pull words apart and figure out what the sounds are that make up that word as well. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what phonics is, but it's a great subject because it's so multisensory. So there's lots of music, you can get really creative with it. It lends itself so much to lots of different fun activities that you can do to just become familiar with different letter sounds.
Perfect. So what sort of age groups were you working with?
So I was working with reception cohort initially. So those were 5-year-olds, 5 and 6-year-olds. And then we moved up. I was actually based in the secondary. So because the project we were doing was so successful, they wanted to roll it out across all age groups, and I spent a short period of time in the secondary helping those children who hadn't learned with phonics. They just missed the boat, so they'd learned with the old method and then things had changed, and that's a new challenge again, because you find that when children get to secondary, they vote with their feet. So if they think, well, I don't really like English, they're not going to go to English because they've got this fear that somebody's going to pick them out to read a bit of a story or a paragraph, and they're going to look silly. So it's completely different. Again, it comes all back to confidence and self-esteem, I guess, and getting those children engaged.
Yeah, you're taking me back to my school days now, actually, where I remember, being picked out to read something from the book, and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. And it shouldn't be like that, really, should it? It should be something that's fun to do for people, especially if it's an interesting story or something fun that's involved. I mean, it shouldn't be this chore, really. So I love the idea of doing the phonics, and actually having done loads of the phonics with my children. A lot of the songs get stuck in your head, which is the point, right? So I always know answer my arm is the one I'm always singing. But what I found doing it actually is it was a good motivator to get them to do things as well, that musical side of things. So if I want them to brush their teeth, it's but brush your teeth, and get them sort of moving along to it. So yeah, it must have been quite fun for you to come up with those kind of different ways to teach and help the children to learn the phonics. So I'm guessing that passion then is, or that role is then led on to building Phonics Bear, right? So how and why did you make that transition from being a teacher or teaching assistant into being self-employed? Because that's a different animal completely, right?
Completely. So I think that what happened was it was a very intensive role, and I was used to working hard, but we had 459 children we were looking after in our region, and so it was a lot to do. It took a lot of work home with me, and I think that this is the thing with teachers. It's one of the only jobs where really when you go to work you do your job, but then when you're at home you're planning to do your job. It's very intensive. There's so much work behind the scenes. I think with COVID people have just started to see with homeschooling just the amount of things that teachers are responsible for doing. It's a huge caseload. And so I had got to a point where I'd started my own family. I'd got my son Lennon, and I was pregnant with my daughter Gracie as well. And so I really thought, I can't commit 100% to this role anymore. Now that I'm a parent, I wanted to share those memories with my children while they were small. And I just felt so torn in two directions. I couldn't give commitment to either one 100%. So something had to go. And so I did. I left my job in the school, which was heartbreaking. But it made me feel I'd spent a little time at home with my family, and I thought I need to do something now. And so we started. Phonics Bear was born there. I needed to get back out to work. And so that was it. We decided I'd go it alone and see what it was like.
Yeah. Okay. So what was the scariest thing for you in setting up something on your own?
Well, it is scary, isn't it? I think the thing was, when I started out, it was unheard of. And I couldn't find anything quite like it. It was something completely new. And you do think, are parents actually going to be interested in this? Are they going to want to bring their children along to a group that's about learning? Are they going to get it? That really it's not so much about, we're not teaching them to read and write. That's the job of school. What we're doing is giving them a bit of a basis so they can be familiar with letters and sounds. So when they go into school, they've got a confidence of, I can do this. I'm a learner. I'm a super kid, and we build a lot of super kid skills, just confidence, self-esteem, creativity, imaginative playing. It's very, very, school's quite structured. This is quite, it is quite imaginative in the classes, how they were running. And I did sort of worry that are parents going to get it? Are they going to want to bring their children along? But I heard a couple of parents, whilst I was dropping my little boy off in the yard, talking about how they knew they should be doing something, but they just didn't know what to do with phonics. And that just spurred me on. I thought, I'm going to go to our local library, and I'm just going to launch a group there and see if people want to come along and learn what I know about it. And it just grew overnight. It got so busy straight away. And so from there, it was such a relief.
Excellent. And what age groups was Phonics Bear set up for?
So we set it up for 2 to 5s. So now we've actually changed our groups, so we do lots of different groups that are tailored specifically at different age ranges. But at the beginning, we just started with one flagship group, which was 2 to 5.
So the first question that came into my head when I saw that age group was, why start teaching them then? You know, why not wait and let the schools kind of run through that process? Why engage children at that younger age, do you think is important?
Well, I think from looking at the government, obviously look at the early years foundation stage curriculums all the time. They're always assessing them, and the trend every single year, and they're doing it again this year, is that more responsibility is always placed on early years, because there's such a lot that children have got to learn as soon as they get into reception. And we weren't there to replace what schools were doing. We were there to help children with the things that kind of, some people would say, well, that's obvious, but the children might not necessarily know. So building strength in hands and arms so that eventually they can hold a pencil. That's quite painful for children if they don't do those activities normally. I had a son who loved to tear around the garden, didn't do a lot of fine motor skills. And so we found when he came to reception that actually holding a pencil was really difficult. He couldn't do it. And so it was more to do with games to prepare those muscles for working, and just introducing them to letters and sounds around them, really. So all the sounds, engaging listening skills. It's really hard. I know it's easy for us now because we can do it quite frequently, but if you were to listen to somebody speaking in Spanish or a language that you don't know, and then somebody said, I want you to listen for this sound in this piece of conversation, it's actually quite a skill. To turn on just that listening skills and picking up on that. And so it's all the sort of framework, the sort of helping children to pull these skills together so that when they do get to reception, it's second nature.
Cool. So in terms of the classes then, are they still in libraries, or where do you normally host them?
Oh, they're everywhere now. So we quickly moved from the library. We were offered lots of roles in nurseries, and I'd started on my own, and I'd got obviously done this as something that would fit around my home life, and it got so busy so quickly. So we started working in community centres, but a lot of nursery work, helping children in a nursery setting, which was brilliant. And so from there, it kind of made me think I need to grow this team to deal with this level of demand pretty quickly. I looked at lots of different methods of doing that and felt that franchising was the right fit for me. And so we set up the proper measures. Obviously, I knew there was lots of things legally that needed to be done to get to a point where we could do that properly. And I think my legal background, everything in your life, I think you use as you go through. So that definitely prepared me in terms of, having a very fine attention to detail. I'd rather do it properly or not at all. So we set up a pilot franchise to make sure that it was a model that could be used separate and independently of myself. And then raising that investment to then get the documentation pulled together necessary to franchise. So yeah, it was a slow process, but it was something that I'm glad we did it that way, because it helped us to do it right from the very beginning.
Yeah, and franchising, was that something you'd heard of before you came in? Before you built out the franchise?
Do you know, I wish that I'd looked into franchising more, especially as somebody who changed career. Because I think when I thought of franchising, I thought of huge brands like McDonald's, or that was what I associated with franchising. And actually there's just such a wealth of franchises out there. There's such a range that it really is an exciting opportunity that opens a lot of doors for lots of different people with lots of different skills. There are franchises to do with all kinds of careers that you might want to pursue. So yeah, I didn't have the knowledge that I have now on franchising, but yeah, I'd always associated it with big things that you need a big investment for, and you need to get premises, and so it sounded really daunting. Whereas our franchise is really different, that you don't need anything like that. You just need you know, a commitment to work hard, and you can do it from home. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that career change piece is the reason why I kind of wanted to share more stories with people, because I've changed career a couple of times, and it's difficult, right? Nobody wants to. Everyone pigeonholes you into what you were previously, and nobody kind of wants to talk unless you've got those qualifications, is what I found. And yeah, it's really difficult to do, and you do have to take that pay drop. And yeah, if I'd have thought about it sooner, or realised it sooner, franchising can allow you to make an impact, like for you. You know, maybe you would have found another franchise that suited you, allowed you to have an impact. And yeah, like say, not all of them have to be millions of pounds or hundreds of thousands of pounds to buy into them. But on that point, I noticed on your website that franchise partners that are interested in joining your business can fund it through a government-backed small business grants. Is that right? And you have to excuse me, I don't know enough about this, so I'm wondering if you can explain that out in a bit more detail, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's lots of help out there for people who are looking at starting their own business. And yeah, the government do back loans to people starting up a business, and they do tend to gravitate towards franchising because it is this proven business model, and they know there's a team of support behind you. It's not just you as a sole person. You'll have an IT department behind you, you'll have website and infrastructure, marketing, all these things. That, I mean, the percentages of people who start up a business on their own and then it doesn't work out for, you know, within the first 12 months is probably down to, you know, that person when they start their own business, they've got to be an expert in marketing, they've got to know how to manage their cash flow, they've got to, it just sounds super difficult, doesn't it? We've got to know how to work on social media and manage GDPR and all your legal responsibilities. And so it just sounds super daunting, and because it's impossible or very difficult to be an expert in all those things right from the beginning, franchising's got a huge success rate because all of that's already been thought about for you, that framework's already there. And so you're given a roadmap basically of how to do it. This is what you'll do, this is how you'll succeed. If you follow these steps, this is it. And that's why the government, I think, like to support people starting up in franchising, because it's got that higher success rate, and it's, you know, your business plan is very solid, and it's been carefully thought out, and I've got a track record. They can see that it's worked in lots of different locations before.
Yeah, and I think that's the other great thing, like mentioning what you did earlier about your greatest fear as, would people actually want this? And you know, will I be good enough to make money from this? Those are kind of things like people experience all the time when they think of their idea of what they want to do, and it stops them. I guess with a franchise like yours, you know, like you say, it's been proven, it's been thought out, and you know, buying into it, that somebody, the people out there that want it, it kind of eases that fear a little bit, I guess, doesn't it?
It does, exactly. Just knowing that demand is out there, that they've marketed previously, and you know, yeah, that it's not so, you know, you can walk into it, but it's hard work, and just having somebody there to give you that structure and that guidance is fantastic.
Cool. So what has building this business meant to you? Like if you sort of look back through your career and see what you've built so far with Phonics Bear, what was that kind of meant? What does that mean to you?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's the reason, obviously I love my family very much, but it gives me such drive and passion to get up every day. It really gives me that other element of my life that we can, you know, we're really proud of, that we're constantly changing the classes and the courses, making them more creative, adding extra bits, you know, seeing the results in the community with the children, and then duplicating that in lots of different locations. It's just so exciting, and it never gets boring. It's very, very just amazing, very motivating on its own. I've always wanted to work hard, but getting that, you know, the reward of people saying thank you, you've made a difference, and especially during lockdown, when we moved on to online classes, just the number of emails we'd receive afterwards. I'd never had a job like that before, where people just say to you, you know, well done, this is a great, you know, this is brilliant. It's really helped us. Just having, it's brilliant to have people give that feedback.
Do you think you'd ever go back to, you know, a career like you were heading down before, or go back into kind of an office environment maybe?
No, definitely not. I think that because when I worked in an office, I obviously at that time I didn't have children, and so I thought about my time very differently. I think since having a family, I felt when I did return for a short amount of time once I'd had both children, and I felt trapped. I felt it felt completely different. I felt I was spending a huge chunk of my day, the best chunk of my day, doing a job stuck in an office for this amount of time. Then I'd come home and we were all rushing to, you know, prepare tea, and I wasn't giving my children my best because by that time I was really tired. And so for me it felt really trapping, and I needed to get back into having something that was flexible. And that's why it's so perfect. It fits around your routine and your life. It enables you to spend more time with your family, and you know, but also do a job that you absolutely love at the same time. So it really is the best of both worlds. And on top of that, you can build it, you can change it and be creative, and get all that sort of part of you out there as well. So it's fabulous. I would not even for a minute think of going back.
Oh, excellent. Well, it looks like you're really happy and really enjoying what you're doing at the moment. So yeah, that's really great. A question I wanted to ask you, because it's one that I ask everyone, is any kind of funny or strange stories that you've encountered during your career?
Oh, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I was thinking last night about stories, thinking what I could part. I think probably the one that stood out for me when I was thinking about this last night was, I think, thinking about going back to Africa again and sort of putting myself back to that time. I kind of thought when I was going out there, I'd bought all this stuff, and I'd bought this huge rucksack with all these special little compartments in it, so that I could go and take everything I wanted, but as good as possible. And what I wanted to do was take with me lots of things for the children that they probably hadn't seen before. Really simple stuff like balloons and stickers and pencils and erasers and things that didn't cost very much, but I thought I just want to show them all these things and share with them all these things. So I'd got, my bag was half packed full of clothes and items that I needed, but half my bag was full of this other stuff that I kind of just wanted to take with me and give to the kiddies. And so it was the first time I'd really been kind of on my own going through Heathrow. It's quite daunting. So I was absolutely petrified when they sort of scanned my bag and said, we need to investigate this bag, and sort of emptied it out in front of everybody I'd gone with. I just met this group of people we were going to Africa with, and just for them to see the contents of my bag spread everywhere, full of like pencils, erasers, stickers, just really random things. Like, what are these people thinking? Everybody was kind of looking, thinking, what are you up to?
Yeah, what have you packed for?
Yeah, really was, yeah, super embarrassing, but fantastic at the end when we got to hand them all out. But yeah, it's kind of a bit worrying what other people would think.
What was the kids' reactions?
Oh, they loved it. It was beautiful. We gave them all these bits and pieces, and the next day we went back, they decorated all the bedrooms by hanging balloons and sticking the stickers on the wall and everywhere, and it looked fantastic. They loved it.
Oh, brilliant. Well, hopefully the embarrassment was, well, it sounds like the embarrassment was worthwhile then. So
Definitely.
worth it. Excellent. And talking about your time just in the franchise sort of world, then what's been your proudest or most inspirational moment?
There's so many. Just, you know, working with children who have had no confidence when they've come to us, and then they've gone on to do fantastic things at school, and things that are completely new for them. But I think my entire team, our franchise team, really do inspire me every day. Just, you know, they are parents, they have very busy lives, and they do remarkable things in their community. They really do. Other than offering phonics classes, we do things like fundraising, we do competitions and awards, and they really do have a really key part or key role in their communities that they work in. And it inspires me every day, some of the lovely things they do, and the fact that, you know, especially my pilot franchisee, she'd tried to start her own business for many years and just not made it because she found it so difficult, and then she came into this and has just flourished. She has so many different groups that she runs, and is a mum to 3 girls as well. And it's just, those things are really inspiring for me, just normal people doing great things that they love doing, and raising a family at the same time, having the time to do everything.
Yeah, it's a real challenge for people in kind of corporate roles, isn't it? Is that timepiece. But I also really liked what you said there about the community side of things, because that ties back nicely to your time in Malari. You know, but seeing those communities coming together and supporting each other, it sounds like you're trying to almost recreate that with Phonics Bear by doing that charity work as well, which I think is really admirable. So yeah, great stuff. It was really good. I think it's probably nearly about time to wrap up. So I just want to ask one more question, and that's to anybody thinking about buying into a franchise. What's your one piece of advice?
My advice is to really not be afraid of it and go and do your research, and think about what makes you happy, because if you spend a lot of your time at work, so it's thinking about things that you want to do and that you're going to be happy doing. And if you can do that, going to work isn't a job anymore, it becomes fun as well, and you get so much more enjoyment out of what you're doing, and you'll find yourself committing time to it that you probably, you know, wouldn't do if it was a boring role that you weren't enjoying. This is something that, find something that you really enjoy, but don't be afraid of it. Don't let things like, you know, we have lots of amazing teachers come to us, feel like, I can't do this because I've got no experience in running my own business. That is what your franchise is for. So do your research, and, you know, ask the business questions to your franchise. How will they support you with this? Have they got an IT support network behind you? Have they got a marketing team? Really find out about how they will navigate that roadmap for you to get you to the place you want to be in your business plan. And don't be afraid of it, because actually, once it's a franchise is a system and a structure. If you're going to put the hard work in, you will get there, and you will, you know, you'll make it work. So people are enough. I think they've just got to have that faith in themselves that they'll do it. But definitely find the niche that you want, and that you will make you happy.
It's that final step that's the biggest challenge, isn't it? But like you say, doing that research can kind of shorten that gap a little bit, can't it, to make that leap? So yeah, really great advice there. Brilliant. Well, look, Annette, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really interesting hearing your career before joining, or before starting Phonics Bear, and how you're having an impact on communities and children, even from an early age. So thank you so much for your time. It's been great speaking with you.
Thank you, Ed. It's been brilliant. My pleasure.
No worries. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.